Good morning for wherever our listeners are in the world today. And thank you very much for joining us for today's CFO Club podcast. My name is Leana van der Merwe, and I'm a technical specialist at CIBA and the CFO Club. And today we're very excited. We've got such a vibrant, excited topic that we're going to talk about with Sara who's the group CFO at the CFO Centre. So we are welcoming Sara Daw to the CFO Club podcast here today. So a little bit of background about our presenter that's joining us today. Sara is a business owner and the group CEO of the CFO Centre and the Liberty Group, which is an organization that's operating in 17 countries. It is the global number one provider of fractional and part-time C-suite portfolios professionals to entrepreneurial, owner-managed, mid-tier businesses and larger organizations. So today we really want to focus a little bit on I don't want to call it a new term because it's not new in the market anymore, but it is what a lot of people generally refer to as the fractional CFO, and why CFOs are going fractional, and what it means for businesses, what it means for CFO, and especially also for the small, medium entities. So we're very excited to have Sara with us today because she's got a very wide knowledge and experience on this fractional CFO subject, and not just from a South African point of view, but from an international point of view. Sara, welcome to the CFO Club podcast today. Thank you so much for taking the time in joining us today. And we'd love for you to just share with us your initial thoughts on the fractional CFO and your organization as a whole. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here and to spend some time sharing information about fractional CFO with your listeners. So yes, I'm the group CEO of the CFO Centre Group. We're a global organisation. We've been running since 2001, and we've taken the fractional CFO concept into 17 countries. So that's, UK. We're actually in South Africa. We've been in South Africa since 2010, Australia, North America, parts of Asia and Europe. And I'm also the CEO of the Liberty Group, which also offers part-time C-suite services or fractional C-suite services in other disciplines. So actually, we got going with CFO, as I said, in 2001. And then from 2011 onwards, we realized that actually the concept could work in other disciplines as well. So we've added those disciplines to our organization, and we can offer fractional services in marketing, in finance, obviously, in people, and in sales as well. So we've taken that whole concept fully forward, if you like. But fractional CFO is our longest established business.
Thank you so much, Sara. I'm excited that we have you here today because I can hear you've got a great knowledge on this. And it's, I mean, thinking you say South Africa, you guys have been in operation since 2010. That's 14 years. So I would like if you could share with our listeners the concept of fractional CFO. I believe there's still a lot of people out there that doesn't know the fractional CFO and how it differs from a full-time CFO. And specifically, if we look at terms like the responsibility and the impact. So if you can maybe just explain a bit to our listeners what is a fractional CFO, what it means, and how it's different from a full-time employed CFO within one single organization.
Absolutely. Yeah, very happy to do that. So the fractional or even part-time, I think those terms are interchangeable. That concept for CFO is typically for businesses that don't need, or can't afford a full-time CFO, but they do recognize they need the skill set, perhaps on an ongoing basis or as particular situations arise. So if I put that into context, we realized back in 2001 that growing entrepreneurial organizations couldn't afford the full-time version of the C-suite. It's just out of their reach. And actually, the role in those growing organisations probably wouldn't be full-time either. So they probably couldn't attract full-time CFOs anyway into their organisation, because there, quite frankly, wouldn't be so much for them to do because the organisation wasn't fully formed. So what we realised was that, and this is how I started, was that to have more flexibility in my life, to be able to make an impact to growing organisations, and to have more freedom and more control over my agenda and have more variety in what I did. And also for me to particularly raise my family. I had 3 young children at the time. I felt if I went self-employed, so come away from full-time, go self-employed and offer my services as a CFO to these growing organisations and work with them on a portfolio basis. So I might have anything between 3 and 7 clients. I would organise my time so that I give each client the amount of time that they need so that they feel like I'm their full-time CFO, but actually I'm not there all the time because they don't need me all the time. So I might work 1 day a week with one company, 2 days a month with another. So I might actually work full time and flex my time around those businesses, or I might say work 3 or 4 days a week and do something else in my other 1 or 2 days that works for me as an individual. So that's the concept. The key thing is that these growing organizations get the CFO skills they need from individuals who really know what it's like to be big, because most of these entrepreneurial businesses want to get to big, and can bring these vital skills to scale, and support the business owner to get where they want to be. So to, realize their dreams and ambitions. But crucially, because we're working fractionally with each client, the client only pays for our time when they have us. So it's a very, very carefully put together model that makes the whole service very affordable for the companies that decide to go this way. They get the skills they need. They only pay when they have the individual involved, and the individuals get flexibly and with a variety of clients. A very, very neat model, if you like. And most entrepreneurs, when they see it, really love it. In terms of the responsibility and impact and how it differs from full-time, well, obviously we're not there all the time in every client, but what I would have to say is that we are individuals that are always on. So what we recognise is that our clients, the businesses we work with, they need to get hold of us, at all times of the day and night sometimes, because, they don't switch off from their organisations. They're always running them. So we make ourselves available. We'll always be available to have a call in evenings and weekends. We realise it's like not a 9 to 5 situation. And we'll give them the advice that they need as they need it. So we're always on. So it feels like we're there full time, even though, they only pay for the time they have. And we also make sure we carve out the roles that we do so that we deliver real impact. We make sure that we do the things that only we can do in that organisation, and we build a finance team in the organisations with us to make sure that they can do everything else, and we'll oversee and guide that, and then we'll bring in the skills that only we can do, the strategic work perhaps, and the really vital CFO skills. We'll do those skills. So it's a very efficient way of working.
Thank you so much, Sara. I think what's amazing for me is just listening to you, this really sounds like a win-win situation. So if we look at it from the fractional CFO, the individual's point of view, like you say, you can work a little bit of flexi, you can choose your time, you can choose how you spend it, which clients you take on, the tasks that you do. And then, of course, you look at your entrepreneurs, the small businesses or the growing businesses that can't yet afford or need a full-time CFO, but they still have access to those specified and unique skills that only your team and the fractional CFO can offer their business. I'm following you on LinkedIn, and you had a very interesting post about almost a week ago, where you were talking about the identity crisis that comes from making this shift or the leap from corporate to portfolio life. And the way I read it is this is the transitioning you're talking about from being a full-time CFO and you or the CFO of X, Y, and Z, and you've got this corporate on your business card, and it's sort of your identity. Our careers and our jobs and who we work for becomes part of our identity. And now all of a sudden you your own person. And I like the post that you shared, because a lot of these changes and things we do in life, people don't realize that there's unique challenges, if I can call it challenges, in like this way you referred to it about the identity crisis. And you said in there that you left this safe, high flying corporate job. And yeah, so I don't know if you want to just share a bit of that with our listeners, and how you can overcome this. So if we've got a CFO out there listening to this and say, you know what, I don't want to do the one corporate CFO anymore. Maybe they felt that they've achieved their goals there, might want to change a bit their lifestyle and move into the fractional CFO environment. If you've got some advice or some thoughts that you want to share to the listeners about that identity crisis, and what you might have to overcome and how you would deal with it, from your experience.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And actually, I did really that really did affect me when I first started. So if you think back, this is almost 25 years ago, and I was leaving corporate, and actually the fractional part-time CFO industry didn't even exist really at that point. I'm sure there were some people around the world doing it, but hardly anyone knew what I was talking about, or others within our organization. And it was a very new thing, and all my colleagues and friends that I'd graduated with and worked through the ranks to become, a chartered accountant, etc., they were all in corporate, because that's what you did back then. You went to corporate and you got trained up, and it was a marvelous time, I have to say. But for me, I was looking for that flexibility and freedom. So this was the move that I really needed to do. And other corporate and full-time CFOs have realized that it really works for them as well. They're disillusioned with corporate life. They want more flexibility, freedom, variety, and control over their lives. And this is a great move for that. But it's not all plain sailing. And one of those is this identity crisis, as you say. So suddenly we don't have that big brand behind us anymore. And that did quite affect me. And I did feel quite inferior at the time. What I've realized over the years, though, is that the way to switch this around, and to, really not let this affect me, is to look at how the impact that I can make to the business owners that I work with. And once you realize that actually it's all about the businesses that I was working with back then, and the value that I can add to them, and really seeing how I could help change their lives and turn their businesses around and make them, help them grow really well, you realize that actually this is an incredibly rewarding career move. And it's becoming way more mainstream now. So even though you might say that probably still quite a lot of the people in South Africa and the rest of the world still haven't heard of fractional, it is actually taking shape. I think over a year ago, or in 2022, there are about 2,000 individuals on LinkedIn that were fractional leaders. Now if you search, there's well over, about 115,000. So it is beginning to take off, and it is becoming more of a career choice. I'm getting contacted by a lot of CFOs or budding CFOs or financial controllers who, instead of wanting to go down the full-time CFO role in corporate, they actually want to perhaps do that to get the training, but then do a career portfolio move, and come and join the fractional world. So it's really taking hold. And I think individuals who are joining now, at least it has a label. We didn't even have the word fractional back in 2001. We had to create our own word, and we created part-time. So I think that is something that's improving. Other challenges, I have to say it is a great move, but if you do want to go this route, other challenges include the fact that you need to have a financial runway, because suddenly you're being self-employed and you need to find the skills to find, win, and keep clients. So that's about moving careers. You have to look at this as a career change. there are more skills involved than just being a CFO to do this well. You have to learn how to build relationships, to find clients to work with and business owners who want your skills, to then get the work and then to carry on working with them for the long term. So it does require an investment in skills and in self and personal development as well. And while you're doing that, you may not be full with clients because it takes a little while to get your marketing going and to do that. So you do need a financial runway to support you during that first year. And I'd say it takes about a year. But what I have to say is once you're up and running and you've got 4 or 5 clients, you're on the journey with them, you've got long-term relationships, you're that emotional confidant, if you like, to the business owner, you're fully invested and highly committed to the success of those companies, and you've chosen to work with them, so you really want it to work, you're not forced to, it's your choice, then it is a wonderful place to be and a great career move that can take you all the way up to retirement. And perhaps then wind down gradually rather than, shutting up shop on one day like you might have to in a corporate.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. I also picked up on the LinkedIn post that you shared there, and you mentioned it now as well, networking. And I think that's also where a lot of people that maybe ventures into this new role, like you mentioned, you need different skills. So you might be a brilliant CFO, but you're not a good marketing person or not good at marketing your skills or networking. And those are skills you need because you now also work for yourself. So you are now an entrepreneur as well. Sara, you've mentioned earlier in our discussion, and now earlier you talked about 3 to 7 clients, and you mentioned now 4 to 5 clients. So once you've got this client base and you've now been through the first couple of years and you're known out there and you've got these clients, how do you prioritize, taking on clients? I mean, I'm wondering if people are in the beginning of this career move and choice, maybe tempted to take on a little bit more than they can handle because, like you said, the financial runway, this might be a way to just get back on your feet after you've built yourself up. So how do you prioritize to make sure you provide all these clients with the resources, the time that they need? Any tips? How would you advise to anyone going into this, already in this industry? You don't want to change your whole career pathway because you want flexibility, and then you land up working 20 hours a day because you're committed to all these clients, and it's your name on the service offering, so you need to service them. So just a little bit on resource allocation, time management, and prioritizing to assist these clients.
Yeah, this is such a good question and a frequent one. So thank you for asking that. So firstly, what I would say is, and this came out of the research that I did for after I studied the business model for my master's and for the book that I've written. What I would say is the key thing for each of these clients, and this is please, if you're listening to this, please take this on board. You need to make sure every client feels like they're your only client. Okay, now that might sound like a big ask, but there are some ways, and I'll talk to you now about how you might be able to do that. But if each client feels like they're your only client, they absolutely know rationally that they're sharing your services. They know that, but if it feels like they're your only client, you will have a client for a very long time and a lovely relationship. So the first thing to remember is that this is a relationship game, and in order to have a really good portfolio career, you're much better off working for clients for as long as they need you. And they'll have you there if there's a return on investment, both commercially and relationship wise. If they feel there's a return on investment for your involvement, then they will keep you there. So the key thing is to always understand with each client what return they're looking for and have that conversation. What does success like? What do they need to make this really work for them? And make sure, always have an eye towards that, and always make sure you're available for them. But your point there is, well, okay, that's fair enough. But if you're doing that for every client, you don't want to be, working all hours. How do you plan and prioritize this? And the key thing is, firstly, what I would say is, Don't try and take on too many clients at once. So when you're starting out, it takes a while to onboard a client, to really get into the rhythm, to really get to know who they are, and to make them feel loved, and to really be thinking about, what you can do for them, and talking to them about that regularly. So what I would say is make sure you take on each client individually, and probably allow a few months to onboard it properly before you take on the next one, especially when you're starting out, because if you haven't done this before, it's all going to be a bit new. So I would say allow yourself a year to get going and stagger the onboards of your clients if you possibly can. That's the first piece. The next thing is to make sure that you work and allocate your time to each client in the same way. And what I mean by that is, if you're going to let every client feel like they're your only client, you need to be available for them. So how does that work when you're working at another client one day? Well, all I would say is make sure that every client knows how you want to work. Have this discussion with them early. Say, look, I have other clients, but I recognize your problems don't, fit neatly on the day that I'm going to be working for you. You're going to have issues that you want to talk about outside of that. So you can call me anytime. And even if I'm at another client, I will pick up that call for you, and we'll have a quick call, and then I'll schedule in when I'm going to respond properly. If you do that with every client, then every client will feel okay about you taking calls from other clients when you're with them, because they'll know you'll do that for them when it's their turn. So that's one way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it is saying to every client, when I'm with another client, I'm not going to take any calls, but I'll be checking my phone at lunchtimes and evenings to make sure that I get back to you if you've got something on that day. The key, and it doesn't really matter which sort of route you take, as long as all your clients understand the way you work and you do the same for all of them. And then that really works out. So that's one rule. The other thing is, you need to organize how you plan your days with each client, or your time with each client. It may not be days anymore. It might be times on Zoom, because we work more remotely now. But what I would say is, some people have set days or set times for clients every week, and the clients are happy with that. Other CFOs instead tend to be more fluid and flex their days each week depending on what's going on with each client, so that they can be available for key meetings if they pop up. Again, I don't think it matters which route you take, as long as you communicate it well to your clients and they all play the same way. So again, that's another sort of good way of organizing your time. The key thing, though, is to communicate. You need to be a brilliant communicator, and really over communicate if you can with your clients around how available you are, when you're available, when you're not available. And also, you need to be looking ahead with every single client to make sure that you're at least 6 to 12 months ahead of where they are and what you're doing with them. So you're planning the next move. They know that you've got a medium and long-term plan for them. You're mapping out the value you can be adding all the time, and you're communicating what that is with a work plan that's rolling with 3 months in detail and 3 months in outline. That way they will always feel that you're on top of what's going on with them. You've got it. You've got finance, you're leading it, and they're safe. And they can talk to you about, how they might want to change that plan. So I think those are 3 really good ways to manage your time. The other thing I would do is make sure you schedule some downtime within your 5 days a week. Because if you've got a lot of clients, you do need, to your point, Leana, you do need some sort of headspace in between each client. You can't just go from one to the other all the time. It'd be quite daunting for you. So perhaps carve out some time where you're reflecting and thinking and planning for a client, and that can also mop up any extra time that you might need to give to a client. So don't fill up your time totally with client work. Allow yourself some space. And of course, if you want to build flexibility to your schedule for something else in your life, then you can, build that in as well. So I'd say those are the key things. And the other thing I would say is, if you plan ahead with every client and communicate well, so you can see the issues that are coming, rather than ignore a client hoping that they won't need anything, I wouldn't do that. I would make sure you plan ahead. get on top of the issues, communicate when and how you can do them. And that's a much better way of managing your time than thinking, oh, I'm just going to keep quiet and hope nothing comes up, because inevitably something will come up and you'll be caught out. So communication, planning, and building in downtime are the ways to deal with flexing your time around all these clients. And also, I guess these clients will become, good friends of yours. There will be some professional intimacy in the relationship. And if you ever need a bit of give, I'm sure they will give it, because you'll overservice them and build a relationship of trust with them, and they'll reciprocate as well. So, I think there's always that you can use at times as well. And then the last thing I would say is, if you are an individual, or perhaps you need some extra support, another way of working as a portfolio and fractional CFO is to get to be part of a team. And that may be a formal organisation, or it could be an informal organisation. But if you're part of a team, then you can share best practice, learn from others, and learn how to do things efficiently and quickly by sharing knowledge with others, and maybe even bring in others to your clients if you do suddenly get overloaded. So that's another way of managing capacity. And if you're part of a formal organisation, that will be how they operate anyway. So hopefully that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sara. I think what's brilliant, or what I never thought of by considering this concern, was, like you said, just communicate and be open. Because obviously, being a fractional CFO, a part-time CFO, whatever people would like to call it, your clients will be aware that you are doing the same for different organizations. And like you say, if you take another client's call while you're with them, they will know next week they might need you when you're a different organization, and they'll grant that to you. So like you said, planning, communication is your key to overcoming that hurdle. Sara, in this industry, what would you say are the key financial challenges that small and mid-sized companies face, and how can a fractional CFO contribute to these organizations overcoming those challenges? Um, while considering that, I also want to ask you, while we are talking about small and mid-tier organizations, would you say the fractional CFO fits in large organizations, or is it more mid-tier, medium, small to medium organizations? Do you guys see large organizations that also require? And then after that, if you can maybe just delve into a bit to us, like the challenges that these organizations, the financial challenges they face, and how a fractional CFO can help them to resolve those or overcome them or plan around them.
Yes, okay, absolutely. I can do both those things. So firstly, your question around, does this work for large organizations? And I would say, yes, it absolutely does. So this is a really interesting point, because what I see in the marketplace is group CFOs, corporate CFOs of large organizations, asking themselves, if only there was another one of me, because these individuals are incredibly stretched, if I might add, from my observation. So if you look at the global challenges that are facing organizations at the moment regarding transformation technologically, we've got digital transformation, we've got automation, we've got sustainability and climate issues, we've got energy issues, we've got globalization, we've got demographic changes. There's a lot going on, and most of these are beginning to fall at the CFO's feet, if you like, of issues that they have to deal with at a group level. And what I'm finding is that corporates are putting an awful lot of strain on their group CFOs, and something has to give, quite frankly. Now, I believe that they can also tap into the fractional CFO market and utilize the fractional skill sets of individuals that have moved out of corporate, because these individuals know what it's like to be a group CFO. Most of them will have sat in that seat. They don't want to sit there anymore, but they absolutely know the pressures that a group CFO is under, and they'll be able to help. They'll be able to pick up projects without too much oversight or management, because they've done it before. They'll be able to perhaps even mentor a new enroll group CFO. They will be able to sit alongside and empathize, and they'll be able to have specialist skills that the group CFO could pick and choose from to make sure that they have an absolute specialist to come in and pick up certain projects. And they can do all of that quite dynamically, and get access to some really wide and deep talent pools. So I think that is the way that the industry will move going forward, is that organisations will realise that they're putting too much on individuals in corporate roles. And these individuals will begin to realise that they can access the C-suite access economy, that's what I call it, access all these fractional CFOs in specialist areas to pick up the projects that they need and rely on them to deliver and get them done. They don't have to train them up to do so. So I think it's enormous advantage and opportunity for corporates. And what could work really well here is these individuals could come in and out of the organisation on a fractional basis. They don't have to be full-time interims. They could come in and match a project. So they could ramp up their skills, then obviously, peak at the, maybe it's a full-time commitment at the peak, but then it drops down again. And a fractional CFO will be able to sort of follow that time commitment rather than just being, an interim full on all the time. So I think it works really well for corporates. And I think that's the way that I can really see the industry moving. So I'm very excited about that. So hopefully that answers that question. It is definitely for large organizations. And at the CFO Centre, we definitely work in that way with larger corporates. And we found it really valuable for those organizations. And then your other question was around about, what are the actual things and, the impact strategically and operationally that organizations at the SME level need help with. And quite frankly, it could be anything from getting, the right reports out on time and communicating with the business owner what they mean so that they can make decisions from them. It can be anything from that to putting in the controls and systems so that the business owner knows they can actually rely on the numbers, plus maximizing profit and cash to get a real engine of finance so that the organization is optimizing its engine and it's throwing off as much cash and profit as it possibly can. The struggles are that these organisations at the SME level don't have this resource in their organisation already. So they need a CFO to come in and deliver this best practice for them and design the finance function and make sure that they've got the right people in the team and the team are mentored and trained up so they can deliver this operational finance. And then after that, what these businesses need and what they're really struggling with is the strategic direction of the business. And to do that, they need information. So they need to know what the options are. They need to know information about what is possible. And then they need to feel confident that they can resource up and deliver some of these strategies. And that's exactly what a CFO will bring. They'll help map the finance strategy to the business strategy. They will have a lot of business skills and be able to definitely input to the business strategy. And then they'll be able to really help get the funding in place, if it's not coming from operationals, that suits the various strategic directions that the organisation is going to go in. And what I see as a big plus from fractional CFOs coming in is that organisations look more credible to outside investors, to the banks, to the funders. And the funders and the investors feel more comfortable about investing because they know they've got someone on the inside that they can trust and is going to really steer that ship and course correct and keep them involved and communicated with all along the way. So there's huge advantages. And these are all things that entrepreneurs find very hard to do on their own. Not because, not because they're not skillful people. They're very skillful people. They're remarkable people, but this just isn't their skill set normally. And they need to be spending their time in their organization on all the things that they're really good at. And often that isn't finance, which is where the fractional CFO comes in.
Wow, Sara, I think I need to book another session with you. And I want to focus on talking about success because obviously you shared some brilliant insight now. But I love how you said you can go in and you can assist with the strategy and you can put the right policies, procedures, processes in place and the right team for this organization. And all of this sounds so rewarding for me. And you also had a LinkedIn post a week or so that you spoke about the signs of being stressed out, overworked, underachieving, and a little bit of mental health, mental awareness. And I would love to, I'm going to definitely speak to you. We need to have a session, especially to the younger generation. I want to redefine success because I feel people always feel in this finance profession that we operate in, you have to have the corner office and the title and this full-time corporate job, and that is the success. But there's so much more. Just listening to you now, I was just getting excited, and I was thinking these guys go in, and yes, you only spend a day or two a week, or maybe a week a month, or how much at this organization, but you've got so much influence and impact, and you can help these businesses grow, develop. And I was also excited to hear about the large organizations, and it absolutely makes sense because if you look at these big organizations, it is usually a group structure. And there's usually a group CFO. And don't we hear it so often that people say, if I could just have another one of me? Exactly what you said. And yeah, here's the answer. The answer is right in front of these guys. They can have another one of them at a fraction, and that might be all they need. So I'm very excited to hear that. Sara, and then I love success stories. So is there any one, I'm sure you have a million, maybe that you weren't directly involved, but somebody that's part of the CFO Centre group or that works in your network that you can really, and we understand confidentiality, so you might not be able to share the organization's details, but you can say this organization had triple growth or had so much success or was saved, or just a little bit of a success story where the entrepreneurs here can walk away and say, you know what, there is hope, and this might be the solution to what we need in our organization.
Yes, absolutely. And we've got plenty of those. I mean, some that spring to mind. An early one for me was one of my early clients of my own, which was it was a very successful organization. It was probably turning over at 10 million pounds sterling, and it was growing, and it was in the technology space. It was in one country, yet they had no reporting. So while they knew they were doing okay because they had a good working capital cycle and cash was going up, and they were making money, they hadn't really fine-tuned it, and they didn't really know what was going on under the bonnet, if you like, so that they could pull some levers and increase their momentum. So that was the first job I came in, was to come in and just have a look at what were the key profit and cash drivers in this organization. And what I found is they had 3 separate business lines. One was doing really well, one was that flat, and one was losing money. And they had no idea about this. So we were able to then turn things around. We closed down the losing money business stream, and we ramped up the other 2. And they went on and on and on. And, this business is now in 40 countries, and it's done remarkably well. So, just bringing some transparency to the finance function, and this is all bread and butter stuff for seasoned CFOs, we could then start to make some really good strategic decisions about how to grow that top line and take the business on much further. So, that's one example. Another one, I think recently we went into a luxury car transportation business, probably about 40 million pounds turnover. And the sale actually had been agreed prior to our engagement, which is interesting. Yet what we realized through helping the sale through was that we were able to increase the purchase price by another 5 million pounds, which the owner was very happy with, through our involvement and talking to the buyers. And we completely owned the due diligence process of the whole business. And we managed to secure a really good deal for the earnout for the owners that was very much, cash up front rather than too heavy on deferred earnings. So, a great outcome for these individuals. And we were quite late to the party then, but we were still in a position where we could use our knowledge and get involved in the negotiations to get a very good outcome for the business owners. Another one was a power tool distributor that we started working with. It was about £17 million in revenue in sterling, and it was actually running out of cash. And that was obviously, a key trigger for bringing us in. And the stock holding had risen quite dramatically. We needed to do something about that. And within a month, we'd added, over £1.5 million in cash to that business by getting hold of that stock, understanding what was going there, doing some negotiations on how to move that on. We helped restructure the management team. We got involved in helping them rewrite their strategic business plan and implement that. And they're now in a position where their cash position is much stronger and they're up and running and planning for future growth, as opposed to feeling like things were going in the wrong direction. So, there's a few examples there. I'd say one of the biggest advantages, though, of having us involved is the relationship piece between us and the management team and the business owners and the finance team. We're a bit of a safety net for the finance team. We can, be that mentor, that guide, that support, really develop them, make them feel like they're on a career path, and we're rooting for them. We're a safety net for the entrepreneur because, we can always be there and guide them, and we can, manage the risks as well as find some upside for them. And I think it's about particularly with entrepreneurial businesses, it's about giving the business owner belief and confidence in themselves, and that they're on the right path and they've got a financial strategy that's going to, back and underpin their business strategy, and they can depend on us, and we'll be there for them, because above all, we want them to succeed, and we want them to do well, and we want them to, realize their dreams and ambitions. So I think, and that's the rewarding piece. I think that's why we do it, because we get appreciated by the entrepreneurs and the relationship becomes quite deep and quite meaningful. And that's, seeing these organizations succeed and the people flourish is what makes it a real difference. It's not always plain sailing, but, that's what we're there to do. And I think that's what we're about, really.
Sure, Sara, taking £5 million and converting that to South African rands, I'm sure that entrepreneur and business owner was very, very happy. And it's exciting for me also to hear that these stories that you've just shared, it was all on different aspects. Deals. We always speak about analyticals, know your business, what's making profit, what's not making profit. Like you spoke about the certain business line. That is something that an entrepreneur and a business owner, maybe that's not so financial focused, won't look at. And they're not realizing they're going on and on with this project or this product that they maybe have a little bit of emotional attachment to as well. And sometimes it's good just to have somebody look at it from a finance point of view and say, look, this is actually costing you. This is not where the future and the growth is lying. So very exciting. Sara, you have also written a best-selling book called Strategy and Leadership as Service, How the Access Economy Meets the C-Suite. So do you like to share with us a little bit the book and what it's about, what inspired you, where this book is coming from, and how this can assist our CFOs, and maybe even not just fractional CFOs, but our CFOs in business? If you just share some insight into that with us. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I wrote that book because at the CFO Centre, while we knew what our business model did and we knew how it worked, we hadn't really connected with the sort of concepts that underpin this business model and why it works. And so I did a master's during COVID with HEC in Paris and Oxford University. And I wrote my dissertation on the business model to see what are the concepts that underpin it. Why does it work? Why is this a disruptive and different business model? Because it is. We're challenging the traditional notion of employment here. What we're saying is that you can have people as part of your team who are self-employed, who are in an access role, not an employed payroll. Yet these individuals are just as committed to your organization as your employees, maybe even more so. And it actually doesn't matter that they're not employed. And I think, we all get attached to owning things, and employment's a bit like ownership. We own things, we get attached to our possessions, we feel like they belong to us. And what I was looking at was to work out how we can have these long relationships with fractional CFOs. And we do, at the CFO Centre, we have very, very long relationships with our clients. And we do feel like we're part of their team, but we're still in an access role, we're not employed. And actually, I found there was this concept called psychological ownership, which is a concept which is established in the world. It hadn't really been looked at in a service context. It did exist. There are lots of studies that look at it in a product context. So if I bring that to life a little bit, Spotify, hopefully your listeners will be familiar with Spotify or Apple Music. So this is a disruptive business model. It's in the access economy, in that we don't own the music on Spotify. We access it. We pay for listening to it. We log on, we scroll down, and we curate our music. And the music feels like it belongs to us, even though we know absolutely we don't own it. So what that told me was that you can have a business model where you access something, but it feels like you own it. And what the killer app, if you like, that you need to build into that business model is psychological ownership. And that's what my book's all about. How do you build psychological ownership so it feels like you own the service, and it feels like you employ these people, even though you don't? And there are some key things that the CFOs or the C-suite professionals and the business owners need to work on to make sure that relationship thrives with psychological ownership. You have to make sure you're accessible, available, and approachable for each other. You have to build an intimate relationship. You have to feel psychologically safe. You have to do things together. But if you put those things into the model, then it really doesn't matter that these people aren't employed. And that's what I actually find when I talk to people that use the fractional service, is that the entrepreneurs actually forget that they don't employ these people. It doesn't matter anymore. The relationship is what counts. And these people do feel like they're part of their team and they can count on them. And my book is all about how fractional individuals and business owners can learn to build these relationships in this way. And if you do that, you can get access to these skills and have them in the organization. And the C-suite professionals can build great careers. So it's a great handbook for business owners and CFOs who are thinking about this type of career and doing things slightly differently and challenging the employment model.
Thank you so much, Sara. It's just, you're so passionate about this topic. I could keep you here the whole day.
I know, I could talk about it for ages.
Sara, so any last thoughts, notes, wisdom you'd like to share with the fractional CFOs out there, people wanting to pursue this career, and business owners and entrepreneurs? Anything last you want to share with them?
Yes, I think for the entrepreneurs is I would absolutely suggest trying out working with a fractional C-suite, because I think it will pay for itself and deliver a return to your organization. It's easy in and easy out. So it's well worth trying it. And that's what happened when we first started this business many years ago, is entrepreneurs really liked the concept. And actually, I can remember one of my first clients saying to me, they said, "What's the catch, Sara?" And I said, "Do you know what? I don't think there is a catch, because I'm going to come in and I'm going to deliver some value to you. But if you don't like me, or you don't like the service, you can tell me to go away and I will. But I will have delivered value during that time I'm there." And actually, we ended up working with that client for years and years and years. So that business owner did get enormous value, and so did I as the fractional CFO. I really loved working with them and found it a very rewarding experience. And I think what's interesting is that for entrepreneurs, it's very difficult to have a full-time CFO. They really don't need them when they're growing, but they do need their skills some of the time. And so it's unaffordable to go for the full-time route. And even if you do go for the full-time route, it's quite a commitment, You spend 3 or 4 months trying to find the individual. Then they've got a notice period. So that's another 3 or 4 months. Then you have a year of trying to make it work. And if it doesn't work, you've then got to part company, which might require, some payoff. You could go 2 years with making very little progress and costing quite a lot of money. Whereas if instead you could use a fractional approach, if it doesn't quite work, if you don't get the fit right with an individual first time round, don't panic, try again, because again, we're as good as our last day in clients. So it means that we can work with them. It doesn't work out, you can part company and you can try again. And I think you'll know pretty quickly. And it's the experience. If you can have the experience of working with these individuals, you'll see what they can deliver for you. So that would be my tip, is to give it a good go. And if you don't get it right first time, don't panic, try again, because you will find an individual that works for your organization at the right level. And then for the CFOs wanting to go this way, I would encourage you to think about it seriously. Make sure you've got your nearest and dearest behind you on this. So you don't want your inner circle saying to you, when are you going to get a proper job? Because it will take a while to get going. Make sure you've got a financial runway, and perhaps seek out a mentor, seek out some others that are doing this already, either formally or informally, so that you really do a fact find and get your timing right of when it's right for you and when you can afford to do this. And then go all in. Once you decide to do it, stop cruising the job sites. Don't look at job ads anymore. Go all in, build your network. That takes a while. That'll take 3 or 4 months to get cemented into your network, and really commit. And if you keep going during that first year and you're really committed, you've got people behind you that support you, I'm sure you'll be successful.
Thank you so much, Sara. I think we've really added a lot of insight and value to our listeners today. And thank you very much for sharing all of this knowledge with us. And for everyone out there listening today, if you want to go the fractional CFO route, please get in touch with us at the CFO Club. We're more than happy to assist and get you in contact with Sara. Sara, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this. Have a beautiful day to all our listeners out there.
Thank you very much.
What do our defining moments look like? Just like this moment right now. They look like pride after achieving that long sought-after goal. All the small victories along the way that didn't feel momentous until we saw them in the rearview mirror. They look like the courage it takes to take that first big step. All the times we fail and rise again. And without even knowing it, cultivating an inner strength that is contagious along the way. They look like the inspiration that comes from knowing that we are not alone. They look like the human relationships that give us wisdom beyond what data ever could. They look like the curiosity that comes from exploring, that allow us to create and contribute. They look like education that unlocks our full potential, using our knowledge for impact. They look like choosing our own definition of success, over hiding, over hustling, over pretending. They look like others showing up and recognizing our efforts after all the times we already showed up for ourselves. They look like being bold enough to be extraordinary. They look like you. Right now, right here. First, we help you see your defining moments. Then we help you seize them. We are the accounting body for everyone. We are the accounting body for you.